For millennia, the elder civilizations of the galaxy had achieved a level of biological and technological perfection almost unimaginable to younger species. The spherins, perfectly symmetrical crystalline beings, maintained flawless biological integrity through constant molecular repatterning. The mycelial network, a vast interconnected fungal intelligence, shared a unified, perfectly optimized genome across its countless individual nodes. The cerebrals, beings of pure psionic energy, existed in a state of hyper-optimized neural pathways, their physical forms mere conduits for thought. Their societies were sterile, their biomes meticulously controlled, and their populations immune to all known conventional pathogens. They had eliminated disease, genetic imperfections, and biological entropy. They had achieved ultimate health. Then, the Scourge of Xylos descended. It was not a weapon, but a plague. Unlike any pathogen ever encountered, it wasn't a virus or bacteria, but a complex, self-replicating nanite organism. These Xylos nanites were designed for terrifying efficiency. They specifically targeted and dismantled perfectly ordered biological structures, thriving on genetic uniformity and optimized cellular processes. They saw perfection as a weakness, a predictable pattern to exploit. The spherins' flawless crystalline structures fractured from within. The mycelial network's unified genome became a vector for rapid, uncontrollable collapse. The cerebrals, perfectly synchronized neural pathways short-circuited into agonizing static. The Scourge of Xylos spread with terrifying speed. Billions perished in agonizing systemic collapse. The elder civilizations, having no natural defenses against such an optimized biological attack, initiated galactic quarantine protocols. Entire star systems were cut off, their populations left, to die in sterile isolation, hoping to contain the spread. Their magnificent fleets, designed for observation and scientific discovery, now enforced a brutal cordon, firing upon any vessel attempting to leave a quarantined zone. Despair was absolute. Their perfect biology, their greatest achievement, had become their undoing. The galaxy, once a beacon of advanced life, was slowly suffocating under the weight of an invisible, silent killer. Humanity, a newly discovered species on the galactic rim, was an anomaly. Our biology was messy. Our genomes were diverse, often carrying what the elders deemed imperfections. Our immune systems were chaotic, constantly adapting to a brutal history of Earth-based diseases. We were, to the elders, biologically unsophisticated. When the Scourge of Xylos reached humanity's systems, the elders braced for the inevitable. Yet something unexpected happened. Humans got sick, yes. They experienced severe symptoms, but they didn't collapse entirely. Their chaotic immune systems, honed by a million years of fighting unpredictable terrestrial pathogens, recognized the Xylos nanites as just another hostile invader. They didn't dismantle the perfect structures. They overwhelmed the chaotic, diverse human biology with a complex but ultimately survivable assault. A small percentage of the human population, the immunes, developed a natural resistance. Their bodies, a chaotic maelstrom of constantly evolving antibodies, could even actively fight off the nanites. Ambassador Vorlag of the Spherins, his crystalline form pulsing with a barely contained desperation, addressed the human envoy, Dr. Eris Thorn. Humanity, your species. You are not collapsing. Your biological impurity, it confers a resistance. We require a solution, a cure. Dr. Thorn, a compassionate but fiercely practical bioengineer, shook his head. We don't have a cure for a nanite plague, Ambassador, but we do have something else. We have adaptation. We have chaos. We have human blood. Vorlag's crystalline form rippled with confusion. Human blood? We require a cure, Doctor, not a biological contaminant. Dr. Thorn's expression hardened. That contaminant might be the only thing that can save you. It might be the only thing that can break your perfect biology's weakness. Dr. Aris Thorne assembled a task force, the Quarantine Breakers. These were not soldiers, but volunteers from humanity's most brilliant minds in immunology, bioengineering, and medical logistics. Their mission was simple in concept, terrifying in execution: breach the galactic quarantine zones and deliver the cure. Not a synthesized drug, but human blood, human antibodies, and even carefully cultivated human microbial biomes from the immunes. Their ships, retrofitted freighters designated as mercy vessels, were not armed for combat. They were equipped with advanced stealth technology, developed in humanity's own turbulent past, sophisticated medical bays, and cryo-storage units for vast quantities of biological material. Their first target was a quarantined mycelial network system. The entire system had gone silent, its countless fungal nodes slowly dissolving into toxic goo. The galactic quarantine fleet, composed of the Cerebral's silent psionic warships, maintained a strict cordon, ready to vaporize anything that approached. Mycelial Network Colony 7 Beta Gamma is showing a 98% collapse rate, a human medical officer, Commander Lena Petrova, reported to Dr. Thorne. Life signs are critical. If we don't get in, they're gone. Dr. Thorne, a veteran of countless humanitarian crises, stared at the readings. Their central consciousness is already fragmented. We need to inject the bioagents directly into the primary nutrient flows. Lena, how's the stealth? Active, Doctor, Commander Petrova replied, her hands flying across her console. We're running hot and dark, riding the solar winds, but a cerebral patrol cruiser is on an intercept course. They'll have us in 5 minutes if we don't get through the cordon. The mercy vessels were small, fast, and agile, designed to slip through defenses rather than fight them. They zipped past the immense, silent cerebral cruisers which fired warning shots that vaporized stardust inches from their hulls. They're going to try to disable us, not destroy us, Dr. Thorne deduced. They still uphold the life preservation protocols. Even in quarantine, they're just really bad at knowing what life needs right now. Upon breaching the quarantine, the mercy vessels landed on a devastated mycelial world. The once vibrant fungal forests were rotting, their collective mind screaming in a silent, agonizing death. Human medical teams, protected by hazmat suits and armed with portable bioinjectors, began their work. They didn't just inject raw human blood, they used sophisticated biosynthesis techniques to cultivate targeted antibodies, creating a controlled infection of resilience. The mycelial network, for the first time in millennia, experienced the brutal chaos of a foreign biological assault. But this time, it was an assault of healing. Human antibodies, born from a history of struggle, began to fight the Xylos nanites, not by dismantling perfection, but by overwhelming the nanites with sheer, adaptive biological chaos. Slowly, agonizingly, the collapse reversed. The mycelial network began to regenerate, its individual nodes developing localized, chaotic immunities. They were no longer perfect, but they were alive. News of the infected angels spread, whispers carried by intercepted comms, and the relieved, if confused, reports of the newly recovering mycelial network. The first successful breach and intervention had an immediate, profound impact. The mycelial network, once a pristine, unified entity, was now a dynamic, ever-changing biome, its individual nodes developing unique resistances. They were no longer flawless, but they were no longer dying. They began referring to their human saviors as the Chaos Weavers, a species whose very biological impurity brought life. The next target for Dr. Thorne's quarantine breakers was a quarantined spherons system. These crystalline beings, their perfect bodies crumbling from within, were particularly vulnerable. Their entire society was based on logical order, and the chaotic nature of human biology was anathema to them. The challenge here was not just breaching the cordon, but convincing the spherons to accept the cure. Their cultural aversion to biological imperfection was deeply ingrained. "They are refusing the bioagent delivery," Commander Petrova reported, her voice tight. "The Spherans are projecting distress signals. They say the human blood disrupts their internal harmonics and introduces undesirable variables into their perfect forms." Dr. Thorne grimaced. "Of course, their perfection is killing them, but they still cling to it. We need to frame this in a way their logic can accept." He broadcast a message directly to the Spherans' collective consciousness. "Your perfection has led to a single point of failure. The Xylos nanites exploit that uniformity. We are not offering perfection, Spherans. We are offering redundancy. We are offering adaptation. Your forms will become less pure, yes, but they will become unbreakable." He demonstrated, using holographic projections, how human immune systems didn't just fight pathogens, but learned from them, evolving new defenses with each encounter. He showed them how our flaws were actually strengths, creating a diverse biological firewall. After agonizing deliberation, the Spherans, faced with inevitable extinction, logically chose survival over perfection. They allowed the mercy vessels to dock. Human medical teams, wearing sterile suits, began the slow, delicate process of injecting carefully diluted human antibodies and engineered immunogens into the Spherans' crystalline structures. The Spherans pulsed with pain and discomfort as their perfect internal geometries were disrupted by the chaotic, adaptive human biological agents. Their forms became slightly asymmetrical, their internal light patterns less uniform. They were no longer biologically perfect, but they began to heal. The Scourge of Xylos, unable to find a single exploitable pattern, was fought back by 1,000 tiny chaotic battles within each Spheran's form. They developed a new, albeit imperfect, resistance. News of the Spherans' recovery and their new asymmetrical forms sent ripples through the remaining quarantined zones. The concept of imperfection as strength began to take root. Hope, a terrifyingly unpredictable emotion, was spreading faster than the Xylos nanites. The success with the Spherans further cemented humanity's role. Dr. Thorne's quarantine breakers were now a recognized, if still feared, force. The luminary Concord, observing from safe zones, began to openly support humanity's efforts, seeing the Chaos Weavers as their only salvation. The final, most challenging target was a quarantined cerebral system. These beings of pure psionic energy existed primarily as consciousness within vast crystalline networks. The Xylos nanites had found their way into their neural pathways, corrupting thought itself, turning coherent consciousness into agonizing, fragmented static. Their entire defense was a massive, impenetrable psionic barrier, designed to prevent any external interference. "The cerebrals are actively rejecting us," Commander Petrova reported, her face pale. "Their psionic barrier is pushing us back. They perceive our biological agents as a further threat to their neural purity. They're willing to die to prevent contamination." Dr. Thorne slammed his fist on the console. "They're choosing mental purity over existence. Their logic is flawless, but their priorities are insane." Breaching the psionic barrier was impossible with conventional means. Any direct assault would trigger a defensive feedback that would obliterate the mercy vessels. Humanity needed a way to penetrate a shield of pure thought. Dr. Thorne, a bioengineer by trade, was also a human. He understood desperation. He understood sacrifice. He remembered tales of ancient human doctors who breached literal battlefields to save lives, armed with nothing but a medical kit and a desperate hope. He proposed an unprecedented, terrifying plan. A single human volunteer, an immune with powerful empathetic psionic abilities, rare in humans but present, would attempt to mind meld with a cerebral's network, bypassing the physical barrier entirely. They would deliver the antibodies directly into the neural pathways, not as a chemical injection, but as a thought infection. The volunteer was a young, gifted human empath named Ilara Vance, her unique psionic abilities, while crude compared to the cerebrals, allowed her to not just perceive, but transmit emotional and biological data. "This is insane, Doctor," Ilara said, her voice trembling slightly before the procedure. "I'm going to be pushing raw, chaotic human biological data into a perfect alien mind." "You're going to be saving it, Ilara," Dr. Thorne replied, his gaze unwavering. "You're going to show them that chaos can be a cure. You're going to show them that imperfection is what keeps us alive." Ilara, connected to the cerebral's network via a specialized neural interface, projected her own consciousness. She felt the raw agony of the cerebrals, millions of minds screaming in silent static. And then she projected herself, her own chaotic, diverse, resilient human biology. She sent a wave of human antibodies, not as a physical entity, but as a thought, a conceptual infection of biological adaptability. The psionic barrier flared, attempting to burn her out, but Ilara held on, pushing through the pain, projecting a single powerful human thought: to live is to adapt. The cerebrals. Network recoiled, then slowly, hesitantly accepted the thought infection. Their perfect neural pathways, once crumbling, began to repattern themselves, creating new, chaotic, resilient pathways. They were no longer flawless, but they were alive. And for the first time, they felt a connection to another species, a profound, alien empathy that had been missing from their perfect existence. Ilara's thought infection had worked. The cerebral's minds, once perfectly ordered, were now a vibrant, chaotic tapestry of resilience. They had developed a new form of neural immunity, capable of adapting to future psionic threats, and critically, they now felt a profound, almost overwhelming empathy for humanity, having experienced human biological chaos directly within their own minds. Dr. Thorne's quarantine breakers were no longer just delivering cures. They were spreading a contagion of empathy. The once imperious elder civilizations, touched by human biology, had developed a newfound respect, even affection, for the chaos weavers. They saw their own biological fragility not as a flaw, but as a potential point of connection, a shared vulnerability that humanity alone could mend. The Scourge of Xylos, deprived of its perfectly ordered targets, began to falter. The galaxy, having embraced the chaos of human biology, was slowly but surely recovering. The luminary Concord, witnessing this profound transformation, underwent a societal revolution. They began to dismantle the galactic quarantine protocols, not out of recklessness, but out of a new understanding that isolation only fostered vulnerability. They established the Council of Biological Diversity, a new galactic body dedicated to understanding and promoting the value of genetic chaos. Humanity, once the biologically unsophisticated species, became the galaxy's leading experts in adaptive biology, immune system resilience, and biocultural exchange. Dr. Thorne, Ilara Vance, and the entire crew of the Mercy vessels became galactic heroes, celebrated as the infected angels who had dared to break the quarantine and, in doing so, had saved billions. The galaxy, once defined by its rigid perfection, was now a vibrant, diverse tapestry of biological resilience. The spheron's forms were still slightly asymmetrical, but their internal harmonics were stronger than ever. The mycelial network was a dynamic, ever-evolving biome constantly adapting to new threats. The cerebral's minds were a beautiful, chaotic symphony of thought and empathy. Dr. Thorne's quarantine breakers had not only delivered a cure, but had fundamentally changed the galactic understanding of biology. They had shown that true strength lay not in perfection, but in the adaptive resilience of imperfection. Humanity, once relegated to the galactic rim, was now at the heart of the new galactic harmony. They became the bridges of biology, helping other species understand and embrace their own inherent genetic diversity, preparing them for future, unpredictable threats. The Scourge of Xylos, though not entirely eradicated, was no longer a galactic threat. It had been tamed, its power diffused by the widespread adoption of chaotic immunity. The galaxy entered a new era, not of perfect health, but of imperfect, adaptable health, a resilience born from struggle. Years passed. Dr. Aris Thorne, his face now deeply lined with age and wisdom, remained a revered figure. He was known as the First Breaker, the one who had dared to challenge galactic quarantine, and in doing so had forged a new understanding of life itself. His former mercy vessels, once feared, were now hailed as symbols of hope, leading new waves of biocultural exchange across the galaxy. The galaxy was a different place. The sense of pristine, sterile perfection had vanished, replaced by a vibrant, diverse embrace of biological chaos. New species, once overlooked for their primitive biologies, were now valued for their unique adaptive strengths. The ultimate lesson of humanity's journey was not about being the strongest or the smartest or the most technologically advanced. It was about our unique capacity for resilience, for adaptation, for finding strength in our imperfections, and for our unwavering compassion in the face of impossible odds. We were the species that could deliver a cure not as a synthesized drug, but as a shared vulnerability, a genetic hand extended across the void. Dr. Thorne, in his final address to the newly formed Galactic Health and Biodiversity Council, spoke not of cures, but of life. "The universe is a dangerous place," he stated, his voice resonating with the quiet authority of one who had literally rewritten the rules of biological survival. "But it is also a place of immense beauty, of fragile life, and of profound knowledge. And if we, the diverse peoples of this galaxy, embrace our chaos, our imperfections, and our shared vulnerability, then no plague, no threat, no scourge of Xylos can ever truly break us, for in our beautiful, messy chaos lies our unending strength." The Quarantine Breakers, once a rogue human unit, was now a galactic philosophy, a badge of honor for any species willing to risk everything to save another. They were the unsung heroes who ensured that the galaxy, despite its dangers, remained a place where compassion was contagious, where imperfection was celebrated, and where even a perfect civilization could find salvation in the beautiful, chaotic strength of humanity, the Quarantine Breakers.